Hello and welcome to my Three Hopes Brigand guide. So in this guide we're going to be going over the attacks, the abilities, and general class tactics for Brigand. So Brigand is one of the intermediate classes that is one of the branches for Fighter. It uses axe attacks in a very similar way to Fighter, and in fact I would just describe Brigand as a super fighter. Like it's basically just the Fighter class with extra attacks and like slightly changed mechanics. So it is an axe class, so it's going to counter lances. Swords are going to be an innate weakness to you. You can press X to activate the class action. Your class gauge fills over time and when hitting foes. This is important, and I'm going to go into this soon. Attacks grow in strength if both charges are consumed. It has 2 charges by default. So for Fighter, you have 1 charge. So this is what consuming 1 charge looks like. It creates this like rock effect. In the first video I did for Fighter, I had no idea what was producing that effect, and someone in the comments is like, yeah, it's just the class gauge. And it's like, oh, okay, got it. So alright, so let's go over the basic attacks. So you have up to 6 Y attacks. So let's go over the first Y attack. Just a basic kind of downward cut, does like low damage. Most openers, if not all openers, for Y chains are always going to deal the lowest damage. This is fine. The game is balanced around putting most of the damage towards the end of combos. So every Y attack for the first Y attack is going to be pretty boring. So the second Y attack, kind of like an upward-ish cut. It's like slightly upward. Does a little bit more damage. Just the next attack in the chain, nothing too crazy or of note. The third Y attack is kind of this upward cut that's almost like a launcher. It doesn't launch enemies, but it kind of looks like it does. So it just kind of moves them back. It does a little bit more damage than the second Y attack. Your fourth Y attack is a downward smash with a small AoE. So there it is. Does a little bit more damage. I did get a crit there, so that might be a little bit misleading. So let's try to just get no crits for a second. So it definitely does around like 100 damage in this case. Now these numbers are not static. They're going to change depending on level, defense, strength, your build. So this is just like for like an idea of how much damage each attack does in relation to other attacks on the unit. So your fourth attack does pretty decent damage. Your fifth Y attack is also downward smash, but it comes out faster. So let me do that again. I actually did the sixth one on accident there. So it comes down a little bit faster. So it's kind of similar to the fourth. It's just some extra damage. If you're going to get the fourth attack off, in a lot of situations you might as well do the fifth unless you're trying to use an X attack, like a heavy attack. Alright, let's go over the sixth attack. It's a launcher. So after the second smash, upward attack, launcher, knocks enemies back away from you. So those are the Y attacks. There's nothing really too crazy about them. It's just standard melee unit combo stuff. So the X attack, let's start here. This is your class action. So you have 2 gauges. There's 2 bars. It's underneath the warrior, or was it called? The warrior attack? I keep forgetting the name of the A attack, but it's the A attack. You can see the A bar down there underneath my health. It's the lowest bar, the gauges, the 2 gauges there. So if you have both of them like full, if you use the X attack, it'll consume both and produce 3 like rock spikes. So that will knock enemies back. It'll launch them high. It does decent damage. Now your gauge fills from just running around and smacking things. So as I'm smacking things, you can see I'm rapidly building this up. So this class benefits from hitting fodder. Like the more things hit, the more it builds. So let's kind of show that here. If you get a bunch of things in front of you or near you, you can rapidly build this up. So I'm just going to release it. Then I'll show you the single gauge. So this is just a single rock spike. Oops, I got hit. That's 2. Let's build this up quickly. There you go. Alright, there it is. Single hit. So one thing to note, the damage doesn't seem to change much. Like in this case, it did around 220 for both an empty gauge and a single gauge. However, the rock spike tends to launch things very high. So it can contribute to combos and opening things up for juggling, which is when an enemy is trying to fall, but they're in like a stunned state where they're like hit, they're like struck but trying to fall and land, and if you keep hitting them you'll suspend them, like how in like fighting games combos work. So that's the X attack. Your basic YX is a launcher, very standard stuff. Thankfully it's quick. For whatever reason, Flugel's launcher is like extremely slow and it leads to like commitment issues where you can get hit just because it's so slow. but this one is at least fast, so you have a fast launcher. YYX is a meteor smash, knocks enemies back. This attack's pretty good to use on things that are approaching you, as by the time they get to you, they're going to get hit. Assuming they're not doing an attack on you as you're doing that. Then you have YYYX, which is this crazy whirlwind attack that hits around you. Now, one thing to note about this attack is you will be committed to it. So, like, you can't cancel it early by dodging or guarding or anything. So let's try to cancel it with guarding, for example. So, like, you're committed to that attack. So you can't dodge, you can't guard out of it. So once you use that attack, you're stuck in place for, you know, until the axe returns to you. So it goes around you, I believe, 3 times. Yeah, and then it finally returns. So that attack is good, the damage is good, it's good for juggling. The radius is good, it hits all around you, like 360 degrees. The only downside is the commitment. So any attack with high commitment tends to open you up for getting hit. So you can use this attack, just don't use it when under pressure, when like a bunch of things are attacking you from every direction, because you're going to get hit, especially by like archers and mages. Okay. And then finally, the 4YX chain, so you hit Y 4 times, then X once. Gets you this like super launcher that creates a rock spike. It does not consume a class gauge at all, and it kind of naturally combos into it. So just kind of do it, then class gauge, kind of lifts things up, and then I feel like the game wants me to use that attack. Now you can use other attacks after it, you don't have to use that attack. You can start doing like a basic Y chain, because it launches things pretty high, so you can start juggling from there. You can see there we have a little bit of a bounce going on. Okay, so those are your attacks. Now let's go over class tactics. So let me burn through my gauge really quick because the first class tactic is related to combat arts. So combat arts that can hit a bunch of things will rapidly charge your gauge. So for example, that attack just filled my gauge almost instantly. So let's burn through it. Any attack that hits a ton of things. So the more things you hit, the better. The one, I can't remember the name of it, but the axe combat art that smashes the ground a bunch of times rapidly fills your class gauge. This can be useful just for like setting up CC and chains. What the heck just happened there? It just like teleported around. Alright, so that's the first bug I've encountered. Okay, so Brigand has good damage output and medium attack speed. So time your attack so you won't overcommit to chains. This is like the #1 thing for this class. It's not like Thief that just kind of like slams attacks out there like rapidly. It kind of takes more time to get attacks off. So there's a little bit, it's not slow, it's not a slow class, but it's like kind of medium speed. So you kind of want to make sure you're not overcommitting. The easiest thing to do on any class is like say an enemy starts attacking, you dodge behind it, start hitting it in the back. So then they're missing their attacks, then you're hitting with yours. That's like the #1 thing to do with melee units. So dodging and blocking is good to mitigate damage. So if you can get a perfect block off, or if you can get perfect dodges off, perfect dodges increase your damage. Perfect blocks will prevent damage and kind of stun enemies for a short period of time. Both of these are really good. It's good to know like when you can dodge and block. So like during your chain, like right there, I was able to get a crit off, or get crit boosted, then get off a big combo. So it's good to know like the attack timing. So for example, if you do attacks with big commitment, like your 3YX combo, you're not going to be able to dodge or block effectively. But if you know when to use those attacks and you can recognize the opportunity to use slower attacks, then that's not going to be an issue. So there's definitely a skill floor in just understanding when to use the correct attacks. And you can always play it safe by doing Y attacks. Y attacks tend to not have high commitment, so you can always roll out of them or block as needed. Okay. So try to attack away from things, hitting them with the edge of your hitbox. So when you attack with most weapons, you have like let's say I unfocus this enemy. If I just start like attacking this way, I'm hitting him with like the edge of my hitbox, and in some cases I can dodge attacks while doing this. And you can even do it in relation when locked on. You just have to kind of do this. So I'm kind of keeping a distance while hitting him with the edge of the hitbox. This is really useful for avoiding close range attacks. Some enemy units have fast close range attacks, so this just kind of keeps them a little bit out of range. It takes some getting used to, but once you get used to it, it's pretty easy to do. And then you can always dodge to kind of compound the effect. So you can try to mitigate taking damage. I think that's key in a lot of situations. Okay, so another thing you can do is you can start a chain away from dangerous foes. This is usually just for like Byleth and like Death Knight and stuff like that. But you can start like whacking. Like let's say you just want to do the slam down and then dodge. So like as the dangerous enemy approaches you, you get a hit off on them and then you continue running. And you'll probably, like the second hit in the chain will probably hit them. So like that, like the second attack hits and then the third hits. And then alternatively, you could always just do like something like that, where as they're approaching you, they walk into your first attack and then you hit them with a launcher and then just run. So hit and run tactics tend to be good on units with fast attacks. Now we have like a juggle going, so we can like finish them off. Okay. So final class tactic, I would say, at least as far as I'm aware, is just trying to avoid the overcommitting of YYYX. I would say you want to use faster attacks. If the map is easy, like if you're over leveled or the map is easy and it's not that big of a problem, you can get away with using it and it's fine. I would just avoid using it against like huge threats or against things that deal a lot of damage to you. You're going to want to do faster attacks with less commitment. Like YX is pretty good for just getting in some quick damage. Like YX roll. YX roll. Really basic stuff. And then you can always open up an enemy with a combat art. And I was able to avoid getting hit there. Like if you have an enemy that's being juggled or it's stunned, you can get away with doing a lot of stuff, so. Okay, let's go over the unique abilities and then wrap up. Okay, so for unique abilities for the class, everyone's slightly different. Some things are the same. There's kind of like a generic Brigand. So you have Wild Abandon, which greatly increases damage dealt and taken. You have Spike, which is just a combat art. Then you have Warrior's Wisdom, gives Brigand and Warrior class actions a chance to produce the stun gauge. So producing the stun gauge means that as you're hitting an enemy with attacks, you're breaking their stun gauge and you can stun them and get bonus damage off from doing so. So that's extremely useful. The more bars in the class gauge, the better the chance. Now these aren't the only abilities, there's other ones as well. So in this case, Ches has... Wait, Ches? No, that doesn't... That's not his name. I named him Ches. I was like, wait a second. Alright, you have Death Blow. Keep the stun gauge visible for longer. This is really good even on any class. Any class can take advantage of this. Keeping the stun gauge visible longer means you're more likely to break the armor because you have more of an opportunity to do so. And this can be equipped on any class. So even just speccing into Brigand just to get this is useful. You have Spike, just another combat art. Warrior's Ploy. So when using Warrior and Brigand, your class actions decrease enemy defense in proportion to the number of bars filled. So 1 bar would decrease it by a certain amount, 2 bars like a higher amount, 3 bars a higher amount. So pretty useful if you're going into Warrior. The only downside though is I don't think this factors into Wyvern Lord. So unless you want to stay in advanced class, you're probably going to drop this near the end game, which is fine. You can still use it for a little bit. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Wild Abandon. So you either get Death Blow or Wild Abandon. Some of the combat arts I've seen are like Spike, Invigorating Spirit, Swinging Fury. You have Warrior's Wisdom and Warrior's Ploy. So Warrior's Ploy when using Brigand Warrior. Oh, yeah, I already went over that. Okay. And then there are some different characters, some units who like excel in this class. So you can see here there's 5 class abilities learned. You have Axe Prowess, 2 combat arts, but you still have like the Death Blow, the Warrior's Ploy, and then I think Ignatz is similar here. He has Death Blow, Smash, Axe Prowess, Spike, Warrior's Ploy. So basically the units that excel in this class or have extra abilities tend to get axe prowess, a second combat art, and that's the only difference. But that's pretty much it for, I was about to say warrior, for Brigand. It's a pretty good class. It's pretty fun to play. Smacking things with a huge axe doesn't really get old, in my opinion. It's not as intricate as some other classes. It's more straightforward and simple. You just kind of run up to things and just smack them a few times for like decent damage. So if you enjoy that as a playstyle, you'd probably like this class archetype. But yeah, that's it for Brigand. Definitely let me know if I missed anything or if there's anything interesting that this class can do or any cool or interesting setups you use. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.